It has been rough going for Attorney General Jeff Sessions in the Senate Judiciary Committee ever since his confirmation hearing in January, when he gave an answer to Senator Al Franken about his contacts with Russians, an answer that Senator Franken later judged to be perjury. Was Jeff Sessions' response to you perjury?
It is hard for me to draw any other conclusion given the letter that he wrote.
The Attorney General's defense against the perjury allegation has required him to revise his answer several times. Here's how Senator Franken summarized those revisions today with Jeff Sessions once again in the witness chair.
First it was, I did not have communications with Russians, which was not true. Then it was, I never met with any Russians to discuss any political campaign, which may or may not be true. Now it's, I did not discuss interference in the campaign, which further narrows your initial blanket denial about meeting with the Russians. Since you have qualified your denial to say that you did not, quote, discuss issues of the campaign with Russians, what, in your view, constitutes issues of the campaign?
Well, let me just say this without hesitation, that I conducted no improper discussions with Russians at any time regarding a campaign or any other item facing this country.
Joining us now, Senator Al Franken from Minnesota, a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Senator, I didn't hear an answer to that question that you just asked. I didn't hear Jeff Sessions define for us what constitutes a discussion of campaign matters.
No, I don't think he was telling the truth when I questioned him in his confirmation hearing in January. I don't think he was telling the truth today. I just want to make sure that everyone understands this is not personal. This is about the #1 law enforcement officer in our country and whether he interfered with, in any way with Russia interfering in our election. Actually, he did contradict himself earlier when Pat Leahy asked him if he had talked with Kislyak about any of Trump's policies, and he said, I could have. Yeah, maybe I did. And of course, policies, foreign policy in a campaign, those are positions in a campaign. Mm-hmm. That's part of a campaign. And he kind of said, yeah, I could have. Senator Leahy used actually the policies in the campaign.
And you've been now pursuing a moving target, it seems, with the Attorney General for months over the substance of these conversations. And now it seems to be, as you said today, the bar seems to have been lowered to collusion. Just simply the denial that there was no discussion of colluding with the Russians to interfere in the election.
Yeah, as I said, it changed. The goalposts changed on this, and now it's I didn't talk about interfering with the election. He also, oddly today, said that he didn't think that any surrogates for the Trump campaign had talked with Russians. And so I asked him, do you think General Flynn was a surrogate? Do you think Paul Manafort was a surrogate? Do you think Jared Kushner was a surrogate? Do you think Donald Trump Jr. was a surrogate? And so what he was saying today, it just didn't make sense.
There was also another point that Senator Leahy brought up about the special prosecutor's investigation, asking if he's been interviewed by the special prosecutor. Let's listen to that exchange.
Have you been interviewed by them?
No.
You haven't been interviewed by the special counsel in any way, shape, or manner?
The answer is no.
And Senator, we know that Jeff Sessions was involved in the president's decision to fire James Comey. We also have reason to believe that's part of the special prosecutor's investigation. So it would seem the day will come at some point where the special prosecutor will want to talk to the Attorney General.
Yeah, and the special prosecutor will maybe ask him about some of the questions, the way he answered some of the questions today and during his confirmation hearing.
What about the proposition that that Jeff Sessions keeps changing, adjusting his testimony in front of his old committee? He used to be chairman of that committee, and when you say it's not personal, I know that you served with Jeff Sessions on that committee and had the kind of close contact that you do with your colleagues on a committee like that, and there's actually a great deal of friendliness that people might not see out there during the hearings. How is this playing with the rest of the committee, including to the extent that you can judge it with the Republicans?
I don't know. I think there's some denial on that side of the aisle. I think to us, it's pretty. We're very, very skeptical. I think your point about the special prosecutor, he is the one that's supposed to get to the bottom of all this, and I hope that maybe this testimony today was useful to him. But we have a special prosecutor who will be taking care of this. You know, it is disturbing that the head of the Department of Justice is having such difficulty answering questions, and it keeps changing the goalpost.
Senator, I want to get your reaction to an unrelated matter involving the president today. And I know it's an issue that you've cared about for a long time, including before your time in the Senate. You visited troops in Iraq long before you were even a candidate for public office. And we have President Trump in this now controversial phone call to a family. And this is the family of Army Sergeant LaDavid Johnson. And his mother, his guardian when he was a child, has now said this about the president. President Trump did disrespect my son and my daughter and also me and my husband. That's her interpretation of the president's condolence phone call to the widow of Sergeant Johnson. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I don't know what happened in that conversation. These are very, very difficult conversations. I've made them when Minnesota soldiers or Marines have died in Afghanistan or in Iraq, and they're very difficult to make. I don't know what was said there, but the president should leave this alone. My goodness, he attacked the Gold Star family during the campaign. I thought that was just unfortunate, to say the least. And I think here he should try to leave this one alone.
Senator Al Franken, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.